On December 1st, 2022, there was a lot of tension in the Mendoza criminal court, and there were lots of people outside waiting for the decision. A 32-year-old woman in a black dress and white beads around her neck was sitting on the dock. She did not show any feeling on her face, and the fire in her eyes was only balance and control. She was getting ready to hear the verdict that would decide her fate and go down in history. Hi, and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Before we move forward, as a token of our appreciation for your support, we're giving away free ebooks. Check out the video description below for a treasure of knowledge waiting just for you. Now, back to the video. Let's have a look at the Carjen Oviedo. It was hard for everyone in the room to figure out what was going on because they had known this woman for a long time. Outside the hearing doors, the judge's footsteps could be heard coming down the hallway. They sounded like a heart beating and could be felt all over the room. Nobody doubted that today's events would determine not only the woman in the dock's fate, but also the long-hidden truth. There was a story behind this woman, and the events were just as strange as she was. There are a lot of details that hide the real crime, which makes the hearing very hard for everyone. Mendoza, Argentina's mountains and rivers hide the small town of Manado. Today, nature is showing off its most beautiful colors here. There are golden leaves on the streets in the fall, and the mountain tops are colored orange and red. People who live in Manado know each other very well and can tell you about the lives of their friends. People share their happiness and sadness, help each other through hard times, and enjoy big events with each other. This remote spot in the mountains and rivers is where Rolando Angelino and Karen began a relationship that would later rock Manado and all of Argentina. When the city streets were covered in golden leaves in the fall, it looked like everyone was frozen in preparation of something long awaited. This is when the lives of the two young people in this story became connected. There was something about Rolando Angelino's looks that made people want to look at her. Karen's eyes caught his attention. She had fire in her eyes, a love for life, and a spirit that made him fall in love with her right away. The young people had a lot in common when it came to their goals and hobbies, and they were both driven and eager to start their own businesses. They met by chance, and it gave them a chance to be truly happy. In this relationship, they finally found what they had been looking for in other people for a long time. In 2016, the two people who were in love moved in together and opened their own business in the house where they lived. Karen had always paid close attention to the little things, and she made a sign for customer service that she carefully put on one of the windows. There were lists of things for sale next to it. They had good reason to be proud of their little corner. The people of Manado looked at this couple with attention and respect because they were happy and determined. Everyone was interested in these young people and how they did everything they did. A lot of people knew Karen from when she was a child, but Rolando was still a secret. His only known past fact was that he was from Bolivia. Rolando and Karen ran the business together, and Rolando also worked at the Gallon Fair, where large amounts of food were sold. When people looked at this pair, they thought they had found their own little piece of heaven on earth. But sometimes, even the best and most honest relationships have to deal with a test. Karen was with another guy in the car one day, which surprised Rolando. He had a sudden burst of anger. At that very moment, he almost broke everything inside the car. In just a few minutes, the picture of happiness fell apart. But then Rolando agreed to give them another chance. He chose to forgive them and keep moving forward with the woman he loved. People saw them as the perfect pair because they were able to get through everything together. He was born in Bolivia in 1987 and goes by the name Rolando. Like many other things in his life, no one knows for sure when he got to Argentina. Rolando is the oldest of 7 children. He learned early on how important family is and how much work is worth it. He met Carolina Chavez when he was young and had a son with her. Even though things were hard, the pair stayed friendly. Soledad Gardio came into his life later and gave him another kid, Elias. Getting together with Soledad also did not work out. Rolando was always a loving dad who looked after his kids. He stayed in touch with the mothers of his children and always had a good relationship with them. Rolando has always been in good shape. He played sports and soccer for the neighborhood team to keep his health in good shape. People who knew and loved him said he was kind and worked very hard. People in his area got along well with him, but Rolando always had a special way of making friends. Like Rolando, Karen wanted a happy, successful family with a guy who would love them deeply and care for them. But it took her a while to find the one man who could make her happy. Karen had already tried to have a happy relationship with someone else before she met Rolando. They had 2 beautiful kids together. Karen married another man named as Roll in 2013. But as time went on, that marriage was about to end. According to Roll, one of the reasons for the fight was money problems. Concerned about his future and looking for fresh chances, Roll chose to leave his family, saying he had to go buy something important. He ran away from the city and went abroad. He did this to avoid being found by anyone who tried to find him. Elias came to live with Rolando and Karen in the summer of 2019. They planned to spend a lot of time together in the near future. On July 12, 2019, Rolando came to say good morning to his son before going to work. He saw that the boy was not feeling well. The father chose right away to take his son to the children's hospital to see a doctor. After being checked out, it was clear that Elias's situation was very bad, so he was sent to the intensive care unit right away. Little Elias died soon after being taken to the hospital, even though the doctors and nurses did everything they could. What was amazing was that he left home healthy as ever, with no strange signs, and arrived at his dad's house also healthy as ever. However, the medical news was very bad. It said that Elias died of 3rd-degree poisoning, which shut down several organs and caused a clot to form in his brain. Elias' parents were totally confused by these results because their son seemed to be healthy and active and then died of a disease they could not understand. These doctors insisted on doing an extra forensic medical check because it was their job to do so. But Elias' mother and grandma, shocked by the loss, refused to go through with this procedure. Even though Karen offered to cremate the boy's body, Elias' mother said no. She wanted to bury her son in a private cemetery so that she could visit and lay flowers on his grave. Rolando's heart broke when Elias died. The sudden death of his youngest son broke his heart. Karen was always there for Rolando and loved him very much. She took care of everything, was there for her boyfriend, and helped him through his sadness and pain. The pain began to go away over time with the comfort and love of the woman he loved. Rolando took a big step and asked Karen to marry him 16 months after this terrible event. Once they were married, the man was sure she would always be by his side, but their happiness did not last long. On February 6, 2022, when Karen got home from the beauty salon and the gym, she noticed that Rolando was having major health problems. On February 7th, she saw an ambulance outside their house. Rolando felt very sick all of a sudden after throwing up a lot. He passed out in the living room of their house, and the maid called for help right away. The doctors let Karen give birth to her husband. Rolando was in very bad shape when he was taken to the Santa Maria clinic. Even though the doctors and nurses tried their best, the young man died on February 9th. The poison that killed him was very strong. Given that Rolando was in good health and played sports, the medical team began to question his wife. Karen said that Rolando was indeed taking medicine to get rid of the dark spots on his face. For experts, this information was very questionable. Tests showed that Rolando had a lot of calcium oxalate crystals in his body, which is a common sign of being poisoned by ethylene glycol, which is the main ingredient in car antifreeze. The investigation into Rolando's strange and sudden death became very important to the officials. The Criminal Investigation Division was looking into the area where the Aquino couple lives. Neighbors were key witnesses because they said Karen had given her husband an unknown drug over and over again. They were aware that she took these drugs to avoid her husband at a party. Some neighbors had questions about what happened to Rolando's son. This made investigators think that Karen might not have meant to kill her husband, but rather put him to sleep for a while. The cops from the Technology Crimes Unit found nothing to support this theory. Different forensic tests were asked for, and Karen, the deceased wife, was questioned in great detail. During the questioning, there were a lot of inconsistencies. The police who were looking into the case asked Karen to name the drug she gave to her husband before he died. The woman said it was only for skin problems and that she gave it to the person through an IV. Karen refused to give a vial of the solution when asked because the maid had already thrown it away. A second interview with the maid, Claudia Cortez, showed that she did not believe what Karen said about the thrown-away vial. She also said that she had heard the couple talking, and Rolando complained about the medicine he was taking. They held Karen while they looked into what happened, and they took her cell phone. The death of Rolando shocked his family, friends, and coworkers. It was also a surprise to people who came to the Aquino couple's building and to people in the area. No one knew what had happened or why the family's father had died so quickly. When rumors of Karen's intentional poisoning started to spread, Roll was thoroughly shocked. According to him, his ex-spouse was always nice to him and never hurt him. Karen had looked up information on the most dangerous poisons and how to clear her search data on a search engine after looking at the suspect's phone. Also found were records of the 2 ethylene glycol orders she made from an online shop. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Agency for Toxic Substances both found that it is a man-made material that soaks up water and is used to make antifreeze. This substance has no smell and a sweet taste, but it is very harmful to people. From the preliminary results of the forensic examination and the new information gathered, the prosecutor's office charged Karen with poisoning Rolando on purpose by mixing a deadly substance with orange juice. Rolando's health got very bad after drinking this drink, and he eventually died. The government had to take strong action against the Aquino family because of a string of strange and sad events. By the middle of February, there was enough proof to charge Karen with aggravated murder. At the same time, there were questions about Elias died, which led to a new probe. The prosecutor's office chose to look into the boy's medical history in great detail. The boy's mother said he was healthy and active, but that he had quickly fallen into a coma at his dad's house and never woke up. The boy's death certificate stated that he passed away due to cerebral thrombosis and issues with his internal systems, but detectives kept doubting that Elias could have died in this way, especially since he was in good health in general. The prosecutor's office asked for information about possible sales of ethylene glycol and got confirmation that Karen bought the poison on July 2, 2019, not long before the boy got to the Aquino house. Information from Elias's family members also revealed that Karen wanted to burn his body, but the birth mother refused and wanted to bury her son. There was enough proof for prosecutor Claudia Rios to charge Karen with new aggravated murder charges for poisoning Elias. A judge ordered pretrial detention for the woman on March 14th. She tried to appeal, but the judge turned it down and said she should stay in jail until the trial started. After 10 months, the trial started, and it was a big step toward figuring out this complicated and scary story. The long-awaited trial started in the Mendoza Criminal Court, which got a lot of attention from the people and the media. Karen's hearing across the country began on November 28, 2022. There were 2 charges outstanding, with prosecutor Fernando Guzzo in charge of the first. The murder of Elias was the subject of the investigation. The murder of Rolando was the subject of the investigation featuring Claudia Rios. Rolando's oldest son, Javier Aquino, showed up as a client at the start of the trial with a lawyer. Judge Guzzo said that Karen killed Elias and then his father by giving them orange juice mixed with ethylene glycol. This caused the son and father to get very sick and die. Karen's lawyers tried to show that the charges against her were false. They said Rolando was violent and abusive to their client, but there was no solid proof to back up their claims. The defense also said Karen had no reason to kill the person. Why does she want to kill Elias? It was clear that little Elias could not have been dangerous. Karen's lawyer said that the house, cars, and business belonged to her alone. He also said that her client had not bought anything on her phone, and that she would not have looked up information about poisons on the internet if she had not already poisoned Elias with ethylene glycol. The lawyer made it clear that even though the actions that killed the father and son were horrible, that does not mean that someone can be charged until they are fully proven guilty. Because the charges against Karen were false, the defense tried to make the jury doubt them. Karen also said that her partner might have been able to buy the antifreeze by getting into her account. She also said she had a good reason for not being there when her husband was poisoned on February 6. He started having health problems while Karen was not home. Media called the suspect the Dieu Malin poisoner. He was able to speak after the first part of the trial was over. Karen made a strong case that she was not guilty of the horrible crime that Judge Diego Liberty let her say. Her heart hurt so much when she realized this, especially since she had two young girls. The court meeting went on, and now it was the turn of the witnesses to say things that showed new details about the case. The prosecutors chose to ask Karen a number of questions. Focusing on the most important points, the prosecutor asked her if Karen had asked for Rolando to be burned. When asked this question, Karen made it clear that she had nothing to say in the matter and had never suggested that she make a choice. The prosecutors called family members of the person who died as witnesses to give more information about what happened. Salted told the court that Rolando told her that Karen had offered that Elias's body be cremated so that both families could have the boy's ashes. He said this after her son had died, but Soledad turned down the idea. She also talked about where she met Rolando at the cemetery and how he told her about Karen's anger. Karen even slept in a different bed, according to her, which meant that Rolando and Karen's relationship was so bad that they slept apart. The mother of Rolando's first child, Carolina, was also there. However, she confirmed that her ex-husband had said that the pair slept apart, but Carolina had not talked to Karen before the incident. But Karen called her on the morning of February 8th to tell her that Rolando was sick and in the hospital. Karen told Carolina that her husband was probably sick because he had taken some medicine. She also asked Carolina to help her get into her husband's cell phone because she thought he might be seeing someone else. Carolina was shocked to learn that Rolando was sick because they had just seen each other a few days before and he looked fine. When she got to the hospital, Karen was already there. Karen had gone to see the doctors. Caroline could not go inside, so she had to wait outside. After that, Karen told her that no one else was there because everyone had left the hospital. When Carolina asked the doctors to explain, they said that the patient had lost consciousness and was not reacting to treatment. This made Carolina very suspicious. Then Carolina told the hospital secretary what was wrong. Then Carolina found out from Karen that Rolando had taken medicine for skin problems and then had an allergic response. She said the maid had thrown away the medicine bottle, so it was no longer there. All of these facts made this case even more mysterious. The trial went on, and now the doctors and other experts were in front of the jury to show them forensic evidence and the results of a psychological test. This proof brought to light details that had not been seen before. A doctor at the hospital named Dr. Ivana Marinelli talked about how she took care of Elias while he was in the hospital in July 2019. She said that Elias was brought to the hospital having very bad breathing problems and needed to be intubated right away. A CT scan also showed that he had a deep brain thrombosis. Elias got a lot of care during this time. The doctor also said that Elias' symptoms were true to those of ethylene glycol overdose. This included losing awareness, being restless, and then going into a coma with a problem with how the blood clots. The boy's health got worse despite the best efforts of medical staff, and after 5 p.m. on July 12th, there was cardiac and respiratory stoppage. Doctors and Elias's father worked together for 50 minutes to try to revive him, but it did not work. The police said he was dead at 6 p.m. At the request of the prosecution, the judges also read the results of Karen's psychological evaluation. The experts made it clear in their report that Karen had lied and hidden the truth. People thought she was trying to show that she was a good person, but she was actually cold and mean. In their findings, the experts also said that Karen had a psychological exam right after her husband died, but it did not show any emotional effects from the death of her husband. Some people thought Karen was not being honest, and this made her seem like a cold-hearted, self-centered woman. Investigators discovered that Karen had hidden anger and acted on impulse, which was concerning. Lastly, Prosecutor Guzzo said she did not believe Karen was a victim of gender-based violence like she said she was in her statement. All of this information showed what the suspect was really like as a person. There were no more court sessions or long weeks of tense waiting. A lot of people were in the courtroom for the trial. They were all tensely watching the jury and the judge, waiting for the decision that would make this complicated and sad story fair. When the prosecutor asked the jury to find Karen guilty, she told them that all the proof strongly pointed to her being the one who planned and carried out both murders. She bought ethylene glycol out of the blue, threw away the packaging, and put it in a bottle that looked like normal juice. Karen saw her loved ones die without doing anything to help them while they were in pain. Prosecutor Claudia Rios, who was holding Karen responsible for killing Rolando, gave the court a sheet showing that Karen used her bank account to pay for ethylene glycol. Both the prosecution and the plaintiff insisted that the judges come to a decision that everyone agreed on. They thought that was the only way to make the case fair. They demanded that Karen be found guilty of murder and showing signs of being very cruel. On the other hand, the defense said there was not enough proof to fully show that her client was guilty. According to the defense lawyer, a person can be good or bad, but that does not always mean they will commit a crime. They also said that the deaths of Rolando and his son were a terrible loss for their client. Even though the defense made some good points, Karen has now joined the group of Argentine crooks who poisoned their victims. As everyone waited in tense silence for the ruling, the jury finally made up their minds. They'd all agreed on the decision. People found Karen guilty of killing Elias and doing it in a very cruel way. The jury also said she was responsible for Rolando's aggravated death by insidious process. Karen listened to the decision while standing there in her black outfit and white beads around her neck. She did not seem to be upset. The jurors found the person guilty. The judge gave her a life term in prison. Karen tried to avoid being punished for the cruel killings that shocked everyone and left many questions unanswered. Her plans to cremate the bodies of the victims may have been her last chance to avoid getting what she earned. Even though she used tricks, the court and judges did not give in and found her guilty. So why did Karen kill the people she cared about? That is still a secret. There was nothing she did not have to be happy. Maybe she did it because she is jealous, self-centered, or proud of herself. Karen would not say she did it, so the reasons behind this horrible crime are still unknown. Karen will spend many years in prison, thinking about what evil forces may have done so much damage to her and those around her. People in close relationships can keep terrible secrets from each other. This story tells us that true love and loyalty should always come first. What are your thoughts about this case? Let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.